I never told my dad I heard him crying in the garage after Mom left because he always told me to be strong, and I thought if I let him be human for 1 second, I'd never unsee it. So I pretended I was just looking for a hammer, even though I was only there to say I love you before it was too late. It was a Wednesday, late September, the kind of afternoon where the sun is already low by the time you get home from school. I walked through the door and knew something was wrong just from the way the air felt quiet, like the house was holding its breath. Her shoes were gone, the tan ones she wore to church. Her coffee mug wasn't on the counter. The blanket from the couch, the blue one she always draped over her knees, wasn't folded like usual. It was gone too. I didn't hear them fight. There was no big blowout, no slammed doors, no shouting match like in movies. But I think they'd been done for a while, in that slow way that creeps in like rot. The kind of quiet ending where no one talks about what's breaking until it's already broken. I walked into the kitchen and Dad was just standing there, still as a statue, hand on the counter, eyes on the floor. The coffee machine was still dripping like someone forgot to turn it off. I stood in the doorway for a second, backpack still on. "Hey," I said. Just that. He didn't answer. I waited. He finally looked up. His face didn't change much. Just a small twitch in his mouth, like maybe he was trying to smile but couldn't quite get there. "Hey, bud," he said. "How was school?" It felt like a joke asking that, but I just said fine, and we didn't talk about it again. Not then. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds the house made. Floorboards creaking. Pipes shifting. The little whine from the fridge motor kicking on. It was weird. Every little noise felt louder now. Like Mom had been the one who soaked up the silence, and now that she was gone, it all echoed. Around midnight, I heard the back door open. I waited. A minute later, I saw the garage light flick on through the hallway window. I thought about going out there. I don't know why. Maybe just to see what he was doing. Maybe to say something. I don't even know what. I got up, walked down the hall barefoot. The tiles were cold. I put my hand on the door to the garage, the heavy one that always stuck unless you shoved it. I stopped there because I heard him. He wasn't talking, just making these low sounds, like breathing too hard. Then something sharp like a choke. Then nothing. Then again. He was crying. My dad was crying. I hadn't heard that sound since I was 6 and our dog died. Even then, it was just one tear. One. But this was real crying. The kind people do when no one is supposed to hear it. I don't know how long I stood there. He always said things like, "Man up," or "Don't let it get to you." Whenever I'd cry as a kid, he'd wait a second and then go, "All right, shake it off." Never mean, but always firm. He thought being tough was how you protected yourself. He thought strength meant silence. And I believed him, so I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I opened the door loudly, enough to make a sound, so he'd hear me coming. I stepped in, blinked under the fluorescent light. "Oh," I said, playing dumb. "I was just looking for the hammer." He spun around. His face was a mess. Red, damp, splotchy. He wiped it fast with his sleeve, sniffed. "What?" "The blue one," I said. "I think the leg on my bed is loose." He didn't say anything for a second. Just nodded toward the pegboard. "Third hook. On the right." I walked over and grabbed the first tool I saw. It wasn't a hammer. I didn't look at him. I just said, "Thanks," and left. Back in my room, I held the wrench in my lap for a long time. I didn't even try to fake fixing anything. I was only out there because I wanted to tell him I loved him. Because something in me knew this was a before and after kind of night. That this version of him, broken, human, real, might be the only time I'd ever see that. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't say I love you to someone who taught me that showing softness was weakness. I couldn't give him something I didn't think he'd know how to hold. So I lied. I used the hammer as a shield. I pretended I didn't hear him. He pretended I didn't notice. And we never talked about it again. Not the next morning. Not ever. The next morning he made eggs. Scrambled. Burnt on the bottom the way he always did when his head wasn't really in the kitchen. He poured coffee for both of us even though I never drank it. Just set it down like a ritual. That was his thing. Pretending everything was normal, even when it obviously wasn't. I sat down across from him. I didn't touch the coffee. "You sleep okay?" he asked, eyes fixed on his plate. "Yeah." He nodded. That was it. That was how we survived after she left. Not by talking, but by not talking. By doing the things we always did, exactly the same, just with a piece missing. It was like we both agreed, without saying it, that silence was easier than truth. But it didn't get easier. He started spending more time in the garage. Some nights, I'd find him asleep out there in the old lawn chair, TV on, some baseball game replay humming low in the background. He'd have a blanket over him, a beer half finished on the workbench. Other times, I'd hear him talking to himself. Quiet, like whispers. Names. Sentences that didn't make sense. Should have seen it coming, or that's not what I meant. I started eating dinner alone, leaving his plate in the microwave. He always ate it. But he never said thank you. I never asked how his day was. I got used to the distance. One night, about 3 months after she left, I found a photo wedged behind a stack of old receipts in the glove box of his truck. It was her mom, standing in the backyard in that old sun hat she wore when she gardened. She was holding a pie, smiling. Not at the camera. At him. You could tell. On the back, in her handwriting, it said, July 9th, he actually smiled today. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I put it back exactly where I found it. Didn't say a word. I could have asked him about it. Could have said, do you miss her? Or even just, what happened? But I didn't. We kept playing our parts. Me, the son who kept his head down. Him, the man who acted like nothing hurt him. But there was this one night I still think about. It was a Saturday. Cold. I came home from work and found him sitting in the driveway in the truck with the engine running. Just sitting there. Not moving. Not going anywhere. I knocked on the window. He jumped, rolled it down. You okay? He stared ahead. Yeah, he said. But his eyes didn't match the word. I opened the door. You coming in? He waited. Then shut the truck off and got out. But he didn't look at me when he passed. That night, I heard the garage again. But this time, I didn't go out. I couldn't. I didn't want to be that kid with the fake hammer excuse again. The truth was, I didn't know how to help him. I didn't know if he wanted help. And I think maybe I was mad. Not because he was broken, but because he never let me be. Because he always said, be strong, and now I was watching him fall apart in slow motion. I started writing her letters. Mom. I never sent them. Just little notes in a notebook I kept in my desk drawer. Stuff like, Dad isn't talking again. I think he's hurting, but he won't show it. Or, I miss when we all sat down for dinner. I don't care if you guys were faking it. I just miss it. One day, he came into my room without knocking. That was rare. Need help with the truck, he said. I followed him outside. We didn't talk while we worked. He handed me tools, pointed at things. The silence wasn't weird anymore. It was just what we knew. When we were done, he wiped his hands on a rag and looked at me. Just looked. You're a good kid, he said. I nodded. You too. He laughed once. No humor in it. Not really. Then he walked back inside. That was the closest he ever came to saying he was sorry. It was 2 years later when I found out the full story. I just turned 18. Dad didn't mention it. No happy birthday, no card, nothing. But he left $50 in cash under my keys on the kitchen counter. No note. That was his way. I used it to put gas in my car and drove around for an hour with no destination, just trying to feel something. That same week, I got a message from Aunt Marcy, Mom's sister, saying she was in town and wanted to meet. I hadn't seen her since the split. Dad never liked her. Said she was a mouth with legs. But I figured I'd go. We met at a diner out on Route 6, the kind with sticky menus and old jukeboxes that never work. She hugged me before I could stop her. You're taller, she said. You look like your dad more than I remember. I didn't know how to respond to that. She slid into the booth, pulled out her phone, started scrolling. I just wanted to see you. Your mom. She doesn't really talk about things these days. She's got her own mess now, I guess. I waited. I knew she wasn't just there for small talk. Finally, she looked at me and said, Do you ever ask him what really happened? With what? Why she left? I shrugged. I figured she was just done. Marcy shook her head slowly. You think she just woke up one day and walked out? That's what he let you believe. I felt my face get hot. He didn't say anything. Ever. She leaned forward. He cheated, sweetie? I blinked. What? Yeah. I know. It shocked me too. Your dad, of all people. But it was years ago. Not recent. Your mom tried to stay. For you. She kept trying to forgive him. But he never said sorry. Not once. I felt sick. Like the booth was moving. He told me he loved her, I said quietly. Marcy smiled, but it was sad. Maybe he did, but he didn't show it. And that matters more than what people say. I didn't know what to do with that. Driving home, my hands shook on the wheel. I wanted to be angry, really angry, but something stopped me. Maybe because I already knew deep down. Maybe because the version of Dad I'd seen in the garage all those nights wasn't the version that did those things. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe the man who cried alone in the dark could also be the one who broke everything. When I got home, he was in the garage again. Same chair, same beer, same old TV replaying a game from 1994 like it was live. I stood in the doorway for a long time. He didn't notice. I opened my mouth. I was going to ask. I was going to say, "Did you really cheat on Mom?" But it caught in my throat. I couldn't do it. Instead, I said, "Need anything from the store?" He looked over. "Nah, I'm good." I nodded, stepped back inside. That night, I found myself back in my room, holding that stupid hammer again. I hadn't touched it in years, but it was still there in the drawer. Same scuffed blue handle. I stared at it for a while. Then I got up, walked to his room, and placed it on his nightstand. No note. No explanation. Just the hammer. It was my way of saying I saw you. I've always seen you. Even if I never said it out loud. The next morning, it was gone. But neither of us said a word about it. I never brought it up again. Not the crying, not the cheating, not the silence we both kept like it was something noble. And maybe that's what I hate the most now. Not what he did, but how easy he made it for me to protect him from ever having to admit it. How he let me carry the quiet, while he just sat in it. And the worst part? I still love him, but I'm not sure I respect him. He'll never know the only reason I went into the garage that night was to say I love you. And the only reason I didn't was because I didn't want to give that kind of gift to someone who never once thought I deserved the truth.